Season 7 of Sun Coaches Podcast is proudly brought to you by Titan Sensor. Season 7. That was my number in high school, so maybe this will be lucky for us. We'll see. You know, I've learned over time that when somebody's talking about something you really don't want to talk about, you just can always throw in there, hey, I knew this guy once, and then just pretty much make up whatever you want to, and they won't listen to it. They'll get off track. And you don't have to talk about the uncomfortable thing anymore. Coach, like we do every week, tell everybody where you grew up and where you're from. Sun Coaches Podcast, where not everybody has a funny story, but everybody has a story. Hope you enjoy Season 7 of Sun Coaches Podcast. Sun Coaches is proud to partner with Titan Sensor for Season 6 and 7. Titan is made in the USA. Proudly founded and based in Texas. When you connect with Titan, you are not alone. You can collaborate and share templates with other coaches across the country to build reports and foster competition. Used by programs such as State 6A Georgia State champion Grayson High School, Titan can tailor a package to fit your needs. The eye in the sky never lies. Improve your team's performance. One of Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 7, and tonight I'm excited to be joined by the head football coach at South Cobb High School, a damn good dog, Coach Marcus Washington.
Washington.
Thanks for being on, Coach.
Thanks for having me.
So, you grew up in Keysville. For those that don't know, that's Burke County, and you went to Burke County High School. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes, sir.
Young buck. I remember when I was at Burke County back in the day, I think you were a freshman at the time. Mm-hmm. I was with, who was your head football coach?
Freshman year would have been Nick Davis was the head coach.
Yep.
And old Franklin Stevens was the D coordinator there. And he was the one that started calling me Young Buck back in the day.
He sure did. And I was with Cavius Preston. I coached receivers and JV. Me and Cavis ran the JV, and we lived in the same apartment complex, and we commuted to school. And Mercedes Hamilton was our help with offensive line.
Yep,
and Coach Stevens was the DC and the offensive line coach.
Yeah.
So after we left, you had Coach Summers, right?
Yep. Well, Steve Summers there for the remainder of my high school playing days.
Well, what else did you play in high school, or did you just play football?
Oh no, man! Multi-sport athlete. Played football, played basketball, ran track. Did the other sports as a means to kind of stay in shape, for football. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like what I did during the off season. But enjoyed it, had fun doing it, of course. But yeah.
And then you got an opportunity to play at the University of Georgia.
Indeed, was a blessing. Coach Mark Rick was my head coach, and that was an opportunity that I seized and took advantage of, and like I said, I was blessed to be able to do that. That was my childhood dream. Sometimes you're like, hey man, I want to do this or whatever, and for me, I wanted to be a Georgia Bulldog ever since I was a youngster. So when that opportunity came, I jumped on it, and I enjoyed every minute of it. It was tough, it was hard, but I enjoyed it. And if I had a rewind button and I can do it all over again, I'll do it all over again for sure.
Well, being a head coach now and having to help young people, navigate recruitment, and it's way different than it was when you were coming through. What was your recruitment like? Did you have multiple offers, or did you just have it in your head if you got an offer from Georgia, that was going to be it?
Yeah, definitely had multiple offers, but like it wasn't, it kind of happened overnight, if that makes sense. So, I tell people the story all the time because I always talk about the importance of you never know who's watching you. You never know who has eyes on you. And so, we were playing a playoff game down in Shaw. And at that time, I was not getting recruited. I was not talked about in any capacity. I was on nobody's radar. But they were recruiting a guy from Shaw, and I made a play, right? So, like, he breaks a long run, and I run him down, chase him down, make just a diving tackle type deal. And boom, that's when I got on his radar. At the time, I did not know that was the play. that got me on their radar. But you know how it is once you get on campus and you start talking to coaches who recruit me and this and that. It's like, hey, when did you start, recruiting me and everything? And John Fabris was the coach who spotted me, and he was the one who began the recruitment process and put me in front of the other coaches and things of that nature. So I'm forever grateful to those guys for that opportunity. But so, when that happens, and then I'm on their radar, still kind of, not getting offers just yet, but I'm on their radar. And then, other teams found out that I was on their radar. And then boom, everybody in the SEC comes calling, right? So it's Florida, it's Auburn, it's South Carolina, obviously Georgia, a couple of ACC teams, Wake Forest, names was in the mix. So I played linebacker, but surprisingly, I also played running back. But Wake Forest actually was the only team that wanted me to play running back for this unique story, right? So, but I always said I wanted to be the hammer, not the nail. So I decided to be the hammer and play linebacker, not a running back, right? And that's kind of how it went down. And once you start getting offers or whatever, then you go to your camps where you get rated and all this other stuff. And so boom, and back then it was rivals. Rivals was the thing. And so you go to their camp, they get all your measurables, height, weight, speed, and all that other stuff, and then boom, you get whatever. So I wound up being a 4-star recruit back in my day. Not sure if I get any stars nowadays. With these new breed of athletes that's out there, man, these kids, they getting more and more talented, younger and younger. So that's kind of how it went for Coach Washington. Again, it was a blessing for me, and I'm very appreciative for Coach Fabers, Coach Rick, and the staff at the University of Georgia that allowed me the opportunity to come out there and play ball.
Well, if the listeners haven't noticed already, surely the phrase "I'd rather be the hammer and not the nail," Coach Washington is not your normal, prototypical, stereotypical linebacker. Highly intelligent young man. Always grades were a premium for you. I know that for a fact, and I'm sure that opened up some opportunities for you to be a little bit more flexible in your choices.
Indeed, indeed, without a doubt. It's like school like Wake Forest is a very high academic achievement school. So University of Georgia is not easy to get into those schools, and that's another one thing that I definitely preach to all of my young athletes. Especially this day and age. With all of the way that it's patching up guys and stuff like that. You got scholarship money, you got academic money, and then you got football money, athletic money, and stuff. And so, but yeah, got to make sure that you maintain those academics so you put yourself in a position to either even be considered, for scholarship opportunities and things of that nature. So,
So, what's some of your favorite memories of playing at the University of Georgia? So, for instance, what was your favorite place to go visit? Like coolest place you went to, like visiting stadium that you were like, okay, this ain't home, but this ain't bad.
I got you. But we had just say some unique stadiums that we played in. Probably one of the most unique was one out at Oklahoma State. And just because the way they have it set up, their their fans, they're like right behind you. I mean, 10 feet or less, right? And so like they can throw a doggone bottle out the stands and hit you in your forehead if they really want to, right? And so it really just amps up the intensity of the environment. So even though it's a smaller stadium, the intensity of the environment because the fans they're right there on you, right? So you miss a tackle or something happens. As soon as you get to the sideline, they can let you know about it. Hey, 44, where your ankles at? Like they gonna let you, they gonna give you a hard time, right there on the sideline, man. So you try to tune that out. Coach is yelling, you're trying to take the coaching and do all that stuff. And so that was definitely a unique environment, but probably one of the loudest, you know, and Georgia fans don't beat me up over this, but University of Tennessee, Rocky Top, man, that thing gets loud. It gets loud. So just quick story. So I'm a freshman, and freshman year, not playing a lot. I'm a special teams guy. I'm playing behind Tony Taylor. He's like, we used to call him the professor, right? One of the smartest football IQ guys that I've ever encountered, right? So, and he just knew the game, forwards and back, up, down, left, right, any way you could think of. So anyway, he's a starting Mike linebacker, and I'm playing behind him. And I can just remember the night before we in the hotel, and it's time to go to sleep or whatever. And I'm just browsing on the phone, watching TV. I remember specifically, he said, "Hey, yo, hey, young dog, you need to go to sleep." Said, "Man, it's like game 6 or whatever. I ain't got no playing time other than special stuff. So, man, it's like game 6. I'm not playing a lot. What make you think I'm getting in tomorrow?" All right. So, like, I'm chilling, whatever. So, just being a knucklehead freshman, you know what I mean? And so, anyways, we get into the game. Tony goes down with an injury. He hurts his elbow. Okay. And so Tony hurts his elbow, and all I hear is, "Marcus, Marcus, you up?" And so, I hadn't got a cut. It was like three or four Marcuses on the team. Clearly, they weren't talking to me, right? So I'm looking around, calling for the other Marcuses that are on the team, like, yo, they calling you to get in the game. No, no, you Washington, we're calling you, get in. So I'm like, oh crap! So I got to get in the game. I'm a freshman, Mike linebacker. And for those who don't know a lot about just football, as a Mike linebacker, you're the quarterback of the defense, right? So like you're calling the huddle, you're getting everybody lined up, you're making the checks and all that stuff, right? And so here I am, 18-year-old freshman, fresh out of high school from little old Keysville, Georgia, in Neyland Stadium there, okay, up in Tennessee or in Rocky Top, with 100+ thousand screaming, and you can imagine my heart's just about to beat up my chest. And so at the time they had Arian Foster, okay, as their running back, okay. So pretty good running back, right? And of course you sub the freshman into the game. What the other team gonna do? They're gonna run the ball right at the freshman. And so anyways, they run off tackle, right at me. I come up, I make the tackle, and I'm like, okay, all right, so I start slowing it for me a little bit, But and drive progresses, they're moving the ball, and it's just as loud as you can imagine, to the point where your partner can be standing right beside you, you literally can't hear him because it's so loud. That was definitely a very lively environment to be able to play in. So, but yeah, it was some fun ones, man.
So, what did you go? When you had to declare a major, did you always think you wanted to coach, or did you go to do something else? I mean, I know you had aspirations of playing in the league,
Correct,
but
correct.
what
So,
was Plan B?
all right, plan B at that juncture was real estate. So I actually got a degree in consumer economics in the housing field. And the goal was to flip houses, right? So, go find property, fix it up, put it on the market, right? And that, unfortunately for me during that time, as far as real estate is concerned, market absolutely tanked while I was in school, right? So by the time I get ready to graduate in 2009, the market hadn't, it was on a downswing, so it wasn't really a lucrative business. Um, Teaching and coaching was not in my on my bucket list when I was in college. Obviously, like you say, yeah, I had dreams and aspirations of playing professional. Things happen. You grow, you mature, and then you kind of set your sights on other stuff. And so, uh, when it all said and done, I did go into housing briefly, and learned quickly that my heart was still with football. And so I had to find my way back to that sport, and that's how I wound up here. But so long story short, I'm putting feelers out, trying to figure out what I need to do, and so I had to go get my certifications and all of that stuff so I can teach. And then I started making some phone calls like, hey, I want to coach ball, I want to coach ball. And Coach Leroy Riles up at Clark Central gave me my first coaching opportunity way back in, let's see here, 2011, 2012, somewhere up in that window right there. So, and then that's how I got started.
So, your first job was at Clark Central in Athens, so you didn't have to go far.
Yep,
And you worked with
not at
Coach
all.
Riles, who's one of my favorite guys ever. I remember when he was at Thomasville, he was funny to me talking about some of the things the kids would do, and
Yeah.
he said he had to get back up that way. But so you start out there, and what was your first actual title position? Like, what was your job there? What did you coach? Obviously, probably linebackers, but you
Well, no, actually, I was coaching defensive line there. I coached D line, so which I think was a really good experience for me because it got me outside of my comfort zone, right, and forced me to learn a position that I hadn't necessarily mastered. You know what I mean? If there's a such thing as mastering a position these days, considering how much the game is evolving. You know what I mean? But no, I started out coaching on the D line. We ran a 3-4 defense, and so that's how I kind of broke into the game, and I'm thankful for that opportunity because again, it opened my eyes to understanding uh, the importance of a D line for one, and how that all thing fits together. And as a linebacker, you're only as good as that D line that's sitting in front of you because you need those guys to eat up gaps, chew up double teams, keep you free so you can run and make your tackles. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was going to be very sarcastic and say, what, you mean a starting middle linebacker at the University of Georgia didn't come right out as a defensive coordinator or a head coach?
No,
Because, a lot of these young cats, that's what they think.
no, 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 no. So listen, you gotta go through and pay your dues, so to speak. And the reality of the situation is playing at whatever level and coaching at whatever level are two different animals. And the longer I've been in the profession, the longer I have learned that, because it's so much more that goes into it. Because even like you, just myself as a player, I didn't necessarily have to know all of the little quote unquote nuances, especially when I was in high school, especially if you were just a superior athlete, right? Like there's nothing else to talk about, right? Sometimes, it comes down to the Jimmys and Joes, right? And so, yeah, coach might have said, hey, you need to establish A gap control or whatever, da da da. When you just big and fast on everybody, you just go up there, knock everybody down, and go make a tackle. So,
Yeah.
hey, offensively, hey, you need to make sure you take an outside release as a wide receiver. But if I run a 4-4, the guy on the other side of me, is a five flat guy. Don't matter if I take outside release, inside release, I'm probably gonna win that 1-on-1.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, as that competition stiffens and it gets tighter and tighter, now all of the little things matter, right? Where eye discipline, hand placement, right? First steps, all that other stuff, and then we ain't even gonna start talking about all of the stuff that happens in the background that the fans don't see, that the players don't see, people in the schoolhouse don't see. You know what I mean? From just trying to managing the emotions of the kids, managing parents, scheduling, got physicals, and who I can go on and on. but
Yeah.
but it's definitely a different world for sure.
Taking kids home,
Hmm. Hmm.
listening to them when
And
they
then
have a bad day,
there you go, man.
being there
So I
for them, being their person.
yeah, without a doubt. And so, I tell people all the time, like, yeah, I love the sport, I love the game of football. I love the kids more. And, the reality of the situation is what I do as a coach and what we all do in this profession, it's a calling. It really is, because here's the reality. You think about all of those kids, and everybody has these Division 1 or playing college football dreams and aspirations. But that's really the small percentage. You know what I mean? You talking, I don't know the exact number, but one to let's say 5% of kids are going to go on and play college football. So the reality is your goal is to try and get these kids prepared for life after, whatever that might be, right? For some it's college football, for some it's a career, for some it's just college as a student, right? For some they're going to start their own business, but whatever it is, once they finish up and come through your program, they need to have the intangibles that are required for them to be successful in life, right? And everybody kind of measures success different, but if you are able to take care of, manage a household, and be a good husband, good father figure, and be a contributing member of society, you're successful in my eyes.
Absolutely. So after how long were you with Coach Riles?
I was with, all right, so Coach Riles was a 2-year deal. He actually wound up leaving for Thomas County Central shortly after I got there. And then so Coach Aaron Self took over. He was there um, for a year. So I think I was at Clark Central for like 3 years total. Um,
And where'd you
and
go
then
after
so
that?
yep. Then so after that I went back home. I came on back home to my alma mater. I was with Coach Eric Parker down at Burke County.
Legend.
Um, yep. And I did coach linebackers when I was there. And actually, great experience. You know, it's a little bit different being back at home because everybody kind of knows you from, when you were a youngster and everything like that. And so, what I can tell, try to tell people too, like, yeah, I'm coaching linebackers, but when I played linebacker, I was, a senior year, I'm 6 foot tall, 225 pounds, right? So the guys that I'm coaching, they're not quite 6 foot tall and 220. So yeah, no, they're not going to necessarily do the same things that I did when I was playing back in my day, but I'm gonna try to maximize their frame to the best of their ability, right? So, but it was definitely a fun experience. Burke County put a premium on football on down there and everything. So, and winning is an expectation, and Coach Parker's did a really good job of taking that program and elevating it to a whole nother level.
So how long were you there before you went to your next stop?
Spent 4 years in Burke County, down there, like I said, coaching linebackers, and then we flew the coop, so to speak, left home, and went up to Grovetown, and like I say, it was nothing, no bad blood or anything like that. It was just I knew that I needed to leave the coop so I could spread my wings and fly, right, and just grow into to profession. Um, went from situation in Burke County where you got a program that's already established, right? Like, success has kind of been, the standard, and things of that nature. And so, a lot of times when you are in those types of situations, um, everything is good, but it's like how much growing are you doing personally, you know, as opposed to just trying to, being a cog in a really well-oiled machine already, right? And so, the challenge is taking what you have learned from that well-oiled machine and try and apply it at another place, that hasn't quite gotten to that level yet, or quite gotten that level of footing and success rolling. And so that was some of the thought process behind leaving, Burke County, and going up and going to Grovetown and exploring the whole new world, so to speak, right? And so, boom, so you go to Grovetown, and I eventually worked my way up to a defensive coordinator spot up there, and again spent 4 years there. Damian Postel, when I first got there, was the head coach. Um, and then the next year, Coach Corey Evans took over, and so we did that for a while. Like I said, I was there for 4 years, and then found a job. Well, I say found a job. Job was open here up here at South Cobb, and put in an application, and then here we are. I say here we are, but it was really a process. So the job was open in November. Okay, and so I applied. I applied in November, and I didn't hear anything back. So I was like, I didn't get the job. And then I get a call in like March, and it's a random number. I don't recognize it, but I do know it's from the Atlanta area, right? I don't know about this right here. So, but anyways, I pick it up, and lo and behold, it's the good folks up at South Cobb High School asking me, can I come in for an interview? So I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. And one thing leads to another, and then uh, here we go.
So how was transitioning from being a coordinator? You've worked your way up, you've been a position coach, you've coached multiple positions, you've worked your way up to being a coordinator, and now you're running your own program. So what were some of the first things taking over at South Cobb that you were like, all right, I got to get these things addressed and my stamp put on it ASAP?
Yeah. So, one of the first things is culture, right? And so, I took over a program that had unfortunately a culture of losing. And so, now you're trying to change the mindset of the kids, you're trying to change the mindset of the student body, right? You're trying to change the mindset of the parents in the community, right? So that's a huge task all in of itself, right? And then so, you think about, okay, what do our mindset need to be in order to get where we where we want to be as opposed to where we are, you know. And so one of our things, our mantra that we talk about all the time is grind. Is no little an acronym that we have within our football program. And so that, we talk about giving championship level effort, responding to adversity, all right, operating with integrity, all right, having a no excuse mentality that you got it done or you didn't, and then operating with discipline. And so, just trying to get that into their mind frame over and over and over again, and to the point where not only can we compete at a high level, but ultimately win some games. And then you wouldn't, as a coach, you gotta take a look at some of the let's say the goats or some of the guys that were before you that was doing this thing at a high level and trying to figure out, okay, what are they doing, and can I implement something, even if it's on a smaller level, of what they're doing to our program, to my program, to help us out. And so, you take a look at Nick Saban, right? And one of his biggest things was always teaching the guys or practice to his guys about next play mentality, right? And so, we've kind of adopted that as well. So, and that whole thing is just about the mental toughness aspect of the game of football and honestly the game of life, right? So, okay, boom, something bad happened. Okay, cool. All right, let's learn from it, but let's move on to the next play, or the next aspect of whatever we got to do. All right. Same thing in practice, right? Okay, we compete at practice as much as we possibly can. You're either going to lose a rep, you're going to win a rep, right? And so if you lost a rep, all right, why did you lose the rep? Was it because your your eye discipline was bad? Were your feet in the wrong place? Like your first step was bad, your hand placement was bad, were you not low enough, your pad level, whatever it was. So that's my learning. Okay, boom. Now learn from it, put it to bed. Now let's go compete again next play, right? So so take that same type of mentality and roll it into a ball game. You missed a tackle. Why did you miss the tackle? Right? Did you not track the football inside out? Like what was wrong? Like, okay, boom, let's learn from it, keep it moving, right? We get hit up the middle. Why? Okay, well, D line, you didn't squeeze and get flat down the line of scrimmage, take the dive like you're supposed to. Okay, fix it. All right, next play, let's go. You know what I mean? And so just getting them to not hang their heads when bad things happen, because football is a game of adversity, as so is life. And so when adversity happens, you can't hang your head and kind of have a woe with me and feel sorry about it, or sorry for yourself about the situation, and you got to respond to that adversity in a positive manner.
So what did you do? Did you do anything with the strength program when you came in to change, to kind of put in some stuff that you'd seen work over your time as a player and a coach and different places
Gotcha.
you'd
Yeah.
been?
So we had a guy that was already here on staff by the name of Trey Scott. He was here. He was actually coaching for a while, and then he transitioned into a full-time strength and conditioning role. And so one of the biggest things though is just really having the guys lift on a consistent basis. Because when I first got here, we didn't have a weight training class, so to speak, or just a opportunity for those guys to lift every day. So got that in place where those guys are touching weights pretty much every day, with rest days thrown in there and everything like that. But this whole thing, hey man, you got to get bigger, faster, stronger. You look at the region that we competed in the last 2 years when I was here, and you're talking about Keatron, Hill, Pebblebrook, Harrison, Campbell, Osborne. Like it wasn't Paulding County. So like, and you're playing in the big leagues. And so if you're gonna play in the big leagues, you gotta elevate everything that you do, right? And that includes, your overall strength and conditioning. So whole biggest thing is just been, hey guys, let's get bigger, faster, stronger every day.
And what did you do as far as recruiting a staff and putting together a staff? And I mean, March is kind of late, so that first year probably a little bit harder to get a staff together. You probably had to make it more of a process.
Yeah, and that you hit that dead on the head. It's more of a process. Um, but I utilize, crazy as it is, man. This modern day that we live in, I utilize social media a lot though. I can find coaches on social media who are in the area that may be looking. And I kind of do a little research on them, just from straight social media, just go check them out from there. And if, I feel like they could be a potential fit, phone call, email, whatever, then they come sit down and we have a conversation, talk some ball, see if they're a fit schematically, see if our philosophies kind of marry up, things of that nature, and then try to move forward the process. But you know how it is trying to hire uh, a high school coach. It's a puzzle piece, right? Because you can find the guy. It's like, man, this I think this guy would be a great fit for our program, but he don't have the certification that's available in the building. And so you're like, man, I'd really love to have you on staff. Unfortunately, I just don't have I don't know, special education position or a PE spot or a science spot, whatever he may or may not be certified in. So you run into that sometimes because you got to find that perfect little puzzle piece, as far as, okay, boom, I'm looking for an O-line coach, a D-line coach, a linebacker coach, whatever, who also, has a math certificate, who also has a science certificate, whatever that, is available in the building. So that, again, that's another one of those little caveats to head coaching that, on the outside looking in might not even understand. It's like, hey, you like the guy, he's the coach, why don't you just hire him? That's not it, right? All that stuff got to have to, all the pieces have to fall in place at the right time in order for you to kind of, you know, ultimately assemble staff that you want to get. We have a couple unused stipends right now, truth be told, just because we don't have a full staff, and you know how it is just right now. It's just hiring can be, I won't use the word difficult, but challenging.
So from year one to year two, what were some of the big? Because that's a drastic. I mean, your first head coaching job, you're never ready, and
Right.
I mean, you're not ready for everything. You think you are. The game's simple. It's all the other stuff, like you alluded to earlier about dealing with parents and dealing with administration and teachers and everything else. The other things about being a football coach that most people just don't even think about. But between years one and two, what were some things you did differently to start getting the thing turned around up there?
Well, the biggest thing is, the more time that kids spend with you and in your system, in your program, the more that mindset that we talked about earlier starts to become, real. The more they start to experience the little successes, they start believing that they can have the bigger successes, right? The more time that they've been consistently in the weight room, lifting, getting bigger, faster, and stronger, once they hit the field, now I'm physically ready to compete, against my opponent. And so, I just think it's just time, and those guys improving and getting better and just taking it day by day. That's another one of the things that we talk about. It's just we just need to get 1% better each day at something, right? Did you get a step faster today? Did you get a little bit stronger in your squat today? Did you get a little bit more football IQ? Whether it's my quarterback learning how to read a defense and diagnose where he needs to go with football based off of, the defense's alignment and then post snap what happens. Did the middle field open, middle field close? Are the corners, are they sitting soft? Are they pressing? Are they bailing on the snap of the ball? You know what I mean? Just all those different little things and just, those guys just having that stuff uh, uh, hammered into them day after day after day until it becomes second nature, you know. And,
So,
just go ahead.
oh, I was just going to ask how you approached being hired late. Probably didn't get to do a spring that first year, or did you?
So yeah. So I was gonna say surprisingly, yeah. So that was crazy, right? So I get hired, I get hired in March, and then like boom, have that spring game in late early May. Early May we played Lithia Springs, and so you coming in and you're inheriting everything, coaches, players, and so spring we try to implement, new offense, new defense, and all that other stuff, and everything's happening on the fly, right? So you got I don't know, shoot, 3 weeks, three to 4 weeks to get a base offense, base defense in, and go and play a football game. So so yeah, that was a whirlwind. That was a whirlwind, and at that time too, because you're talking March. My wife, she's also an educator, and so she was assistant principal in Richmond County at the time, and so she couldn't just up and leave. So boom. So I'm having to commute from Augusta to South Cobb, so and then sometimes whether you catch a hotel and stay throughout the week up here, go home on the weekends type stuff. So it was a little bit of a whirlwind because I hadn't got housing situated yet up here and everything. So yeah, so yeah, everything happened quick, and so I had to hit the ground running.
So year two this year, how did you approach spring, or did you do a spring? How did you do your off season going into year two as opposed to having to just do what you had to do year one?
Yeah, so we definitely had a spring. I like having a spring game. It kind of gives the kids something to look forward to and to work towards. When we hit off season. Because basically once the season ends, like right now, season's done. We didn't make the playoffs this year. So boom, so we automatically finna go into off season mode, and that's hitting it hard in the weight room, and we'll do that. All the way from now basically up until I don't know, doggone April, right? And then April rolls around, and now it's time to start doing the football stuff, right? Because it's spring football time, and so you actually recruit the building hard. You go, shake all the bushes and turn over all the rocks and all that other stuff, and just try and get as much program participation as possible, and then get those guys to buy into what you're doing, get them to lift on a consistent basis, right? And when they're lifting on a consistent basis, to me that shows commitment, right? So like you have guys that, hey, I want to play ball, I want to do this or whatever, da da da, but they don't want to do the things that are necessary to be a ball player, to be an athlete, right? They don't want to. They don't want to stay after school and work out. They don't want to, transition to that weight training class and lift weights every day. I don't want to be sweaty going to school. It's like, hey man, you're a ball player or not, right? So, once you recruit the hallways and do all that stuff and get the kids who show some interest to start, lifting with you and being a part of your off season program, and, now you feel more comfortable about those guys sticking around, because you've been around the game long enough. You have a kid, yeah, I want to play, and then the hard stuff starts, and then all of a sudden they get real scarce, right?
Yeah, they
you
ain't got no
know,
skin in the game.
yeah, they have a skin in the game, and so so that's huge. You know what I'm saying? Make sure you can get as much program participation as possible in the building, get them lifting, get them running, doing all that stuff, make them commit to you, and then go from there. And then, obviously, one of the biggest things too is just that the feeder program. Feeder program is huge, and so you got to make your face present in your middle schools that's feeding your school. So every system is set up different. So when I come, like what I'm used to down in Burke County, you got Burke County High School, Burke County Middle School, Burke County Elementary School, and all those kids funnel into the same school system. So up here, a place like Cobb's different. You know, I'll have three different schools that will funnel into my school, but based off of the way the lines are drawn with the district and everything, it might be a school that has, half of their kids gonna come in or district at least for South Carolina High School, and the other half is district for, let's say, Pebbleville, right? And then you'll have another school where, you know, I don't know, 25 to 30% of them are going to come to uh, to South Cobb. Another 30% are going to go to McEachern, and then another 30% are going to go to Osborne. And that's just some examples. So, but either way, you got to make yourself present and get into those buildings so those kids can see you and get them a part of what you're doing, get them believing in what you're doing, so they can become your future. You know what I mean? And once you establish that feeder and got the pipeline going, now you got, kids that are going to be coming to you on a consistent basis that you can grow and develop into ball players, and you build longevity that way. You know what I mean? Um, a little bit different from what they're doing right now in college football. They're not really building longevity; they're just building for the next year with their transfer portal and everything. That's a whole different story. Yeah.
Well, I was going to point out to everybody, if they didn't know, that South Cobb's location is very unique because I was at Lithia Springs with Isaac Farrell back in the early 2000s, and Lithia Springs, although in another county, is right next door to you. Pebblebrook is
Indeed.
right next door to you. Osborne is literally right down the road. McEachern, Hiram. You can literally throw a rock from South Cobb High School and hit 7, 8, 9, 10 different high schools. So the fact that you hit on the fact that you got to be present and recruit and put the time in with your feeder programs, because they have choices. They can go wherever.
Indeed.
And
So
you got to get out there and, like you said, turn over some rocks and rattle some bushes and make sure you get those kids in.
indeed. And then you gotta, once you get them in, you gotta keep them in.
Yeah.
It's a transient area. You think about your more rural areas where you don't have as much apartment living, right? So like up here, you have a lot of apartment living. So a kid could, be on a 1 year lease, an apartment, and then next thing you know, that lease runs out and he's moving. And so that's the reality, or another reality of it that happens as well. So you do get some transiency that way.
So what are you've already touched on the off season and what you guys have in store for that. What are your thoughts about next year? What do you think you have coming back, and what are you excited about? And going into year 3, should see a little bit more improvement and making strides and heading toward the playoffs.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, we did graduate a pretty big senior class, considering, the numbers that I have on my team. And then my highest offensive production guy was a senior this year. So we're gonna have to find a way to replace 850 yards of receiving um, out of one of my receivers. But I got some youngsters that I feel really good about that I think are going to develop into some really productive athletes. So I'm excited about that. Obviously, we also have a new region that we'll be in this year coming up. So I'm hoping with a combination of those guys growing and developing into some productive young men that's out of my sophomore class that's coming up, and a few freshmen that flashed last year as well, that we'll be able to compete at a high level this year.
Well, Coach, I know you're going to have them grinding. I know you're going to be leading them the right way and doing it the right way. It's the way you were raised. It's the way that you know the game, and it's what you're passing on to the next generation. And I'm so appreciative of you coming on and sharing your story with us.
Hey, no problem. Actually, I mean, I'm appreciative of you and thankful for you having me on, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Season 7 of Sun Coaches Podcast is proudly brought to you by Titan Sensor. Season 7.